Ugh. Another day, another cloud of coal dust.
Port Ogden, Utah, 6:50 a.m. The display captured on camera contrasts with the fairly modern city in the background. One might think that this was taken many decades ago, but this scene was in fact shot in 1986. Every morning during the operating season, large steam locomotives like this one leave the roundhouse ready for the day's work. Just a 15-minute train ride north of Port Ogden is the town of Armstrong, Utah. Just west of this location is the busy port of Newcastle, New Mexico, and northwest is the industrial district of Vandenhoven, Colorado. All are locations surrounding the Four Corners Monument and are linked together by something truly remarkable. This is the story of the Port Ogden and Northern Railroad, where one can still find Western steam action at its finest. To most people of the modern era, the Port Ogden and Northern appears to be one railroad linking the regions surrounding the Four Corners. But this wasn't always the case. The route was formed from two separate railroads. In 1882, the narrow-gauge Denver and Rio Grande Railroad reached Grand Junction, Colorado on a route extending west from Denver. At the same time, the standard-gauge Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway had completed a transcontinental route linking Chicago with Flagstaff, Arizona. Both railroads found opportunity in the cities of Vandenhoven and Port Ogden, but were not ready to share the region.
It wasn't the first time General Palmer encountered a competition with the Santa Fe Railway. There were battles fought at Redton Pass and the Royal Gorge a few years prior. The biggest battle took place at Armstrong Canyon. There were hired gunmen, firing arms, supply trains being blown up, and just chaos all around, and it was all just for some railroading territory.
The brief war between the Rio Grande and Santa Fe ended almost abruptly as it began in August, when they reached an agreement to divide the territory. The portion stretching south from Vandenhoven, Colorado to Ogden, Arizona was built by the Rio Grande, while the section heading north from 77 was managed by the Santa Fe. Over the decades to come, the Rio Grande built some branches to Exacto, Fowlis, and Nunes, as well as a connection route to Salt Lake City. The Santa Fe Railway branched down south to Chippewa Falls before building its own connection to Flagstaff. In 1895, the Rio Grande converted portions of its line to standard gauge, making connections with the Santa Fe Railway much easier. By the early 1920s, the system was one of the biggest in the American West, taming the once isolated region at the edges of the four states. Things would take a downturn following the Wall Street crash of 1929, as both railroads slowly abandoned portions of the once thriving system. By 1940, the last passenger train operated by the Santa Fe left Port Ogden with no ceremony.
Four Corners Limited, coming through. Mount Times.
40 years have passed, and the once wilting Four Corners lines have blossomed into today's Port Ogden and Northern Railroad. When the Rio Grande and Santa Fe abandoned the region, a new corporation purchased the system to keep transportation of freight and passengers going for the surrounding communities. As if the preservation of these historic routes wasn't enough, their trains are pulled by steam locomotives well over 50 years old.
Apparently, it's a publicity thing. You got coal trains for the revenue, and then you have the retired steam locomotives attracting the attentions for the rail fans, families, modern railroaders, photographers. Yeah, you get the picture. In short, it's just showing off.
As well as steam-operated freight trains, the railroad also operates commuter trains for the region's passengers. A step aboard these 1900s-era Harriman coaches brings these modern-day tourists back to the lost era of American railroading. The railroad's main express service is the Four Corners Limited, which connects Harrison, Colorado with Ogden, Arizona. Departing at 7 in the morning, this scene recreates a time when trains dominated luxurious interstate transportation. At the same time as the Four Corners Limited, a second express known as the Ogden Bullet departs Ogden. This sleek aluminum steed of the rails came from a time when streamliners were the pride of America's railroads. Today, the Ogden Bullet is one of the few streamliners remaining in regular service. The first landmark outside Ogden is the famous Farina Spiral. At this location, the train passes a bridge, which it will cross minutes later. During its conception, Santa Fe track surveyors found there was virtually no other way to gain elevation on the route to Port Ogden.
Built in 1885 as a timber trestle, this location was where a legendary on the Santa Fe took place. Saboteurs placed dynamite within the supports in an attempt to delay construction. The railroad was stalled here for the next 2 months while the bridge was being rebuilt.
After passing through the first tunnel on the route, the train passes the industrial district of Port Ogden. The location gets its name from the shipping port just south of the city. The port is also home to the largest locomotive facility on the railroad. Every morning during the summer, the cold breeze mixes with clouds of steam and the smell of coal dust in the air.
This is the largest functioning locomotive facility in America, or at least in the western half of America. It has a 130-foot turntable, a 120-ton coaling tower, and a maintenance shop just behind the station. It's adjacent to the barge port at the river, which transports cargo, logs, and fuel too. It's also worth mentioning that there's a bridge to the city's industrial district, probably the railroad's second industrial epicenter behind Vandenhoven.
The entire yard can be viewed from the truss bridge going up to the next tunnel to the Acme River Valley.
This river network was a major engineering challenge during the early days of construction. Both the Rio Grande and Santa Fe railroads faced difficulty making efficient routes between 77, Newcastle, and Ogden. If you look to your left, you might see the South Pass Hydroelectric Dam. Constructed on the site of a waterfall, it provides electricity for the town of Acme.
During the line's construction, an entire year was spent navigating the extensive network of rivers and lakes. In the process, the railroad town of Acme was founded to accommodate railroaders during construction. The dam marks the beginning of the climb up South Pass. Located here is a passing loop and servicing facility for helper engines. Seen here is a mainline diesel helping a stranded freight bound for Albuquerque.
They keep running late. I recall one time when they ran 20 years late. I mean, that's weird because Amtrak hasn't even been around for 20 years at this point, but I'm just making this shit up because I'm a
Somebody shake
I actually
him
know more than everyone knows.
Santa Fe equipment is leased from time to time to provide additional power. In fact, multiple railroads lend their locomotives for assistance on underpowered trains.
The railroad may have plenty of engines, but they're not always topped up. There's always going to be a time when foreign power is going to be needed on longer trains. It kind of makes sense for me to be here, as this is former Santa Fe territory. And I enjoy it too. Assisting passenger trains here is the only time I can relax from the merchandise traffic on the Transcon. It's also the only place where real passenger trains operate. Amtrak doesn't count.
After passing the junction at 77, the train thunders through the lush Tinkers Valley. It is here where the train crosses another hydroelectric dam. This part of the line is where the train reaches maximum speed, around 70 miles per hour.
Major engineering challenges prevented an efficient connection from Hyde to Tinkers for a long time. Only when the resources to build a tall steel bridge emerged did construction even begin.
This is one of 2 bridges on this portion of the route. The next one is the longest. The Vandenhoven Bridge spans across Lake Vandenhoven, the largest of the western Great Lakes. In the distance is the busy port of Newcastle. Other industries from Vandenhoven also use the lake for shipping. This bridge is also unique for its bi-level track structure.
Hey, I'm up here. Turn the camera to me.
The larger locomotives are in charge of the high-priority intermodals transferred by the Rio Grande and Santa Fe railroads at the joint lines. The immense size of these engines is one of the reasons rail fans and photographers alike travel down here to film these superpower locomotives in action. Hyde is the location of another landmark, referred to by the locals as the 2 S's. The 2 lines loop over each other twice as they follow the river to Vandenhoven.
Number 956 is cleared. Lowering truss span for express number 7. Over.
Copy that. Express number 7 on the approach. We've got a clear signal. Over.
Proceed north, number 7. Have a good trip. Over.
Will do. Over and out.
On the other side of the lift bridge is the industrial epicenter of the region, Vandenhoven, Colorado. To avoid contact with the busy district, the train crosses several bridges to reach the shipping port.
Last stop, Port Vandenhoven, where this train will terminate. Thank you for traveling on the Port Ogden and Northern Railroad. We hope you enjoyed your journey and come back to ride with us again.
All this time, the Ogden Bullet was speeding toward Vandenhoven from the south. The Four Corners Limited was thundering its way from the north to Ogden. Sundermeyer, Colorado, also known as the Western Raceway by veterans of the Rio Grande, allows the highest track speed on the railroad. The fastest trains have been recorded to reach 80 miles per hour on this stretch. The most famous locomotives of this region are the superpowered Titans of the Union Pacific. Assigned to long-distance intermodal and manifest trains, the Big Boy and Challenger-type engines spend the day on round trips through the Rockies, a job that has remained unchanged from their Union Pacific glory days.
Alco Schenectady shops built me for this kind of task. I was designed to climb the steep grades of the Wasatch Mountain Range, Sherburne Hill, and I could probably handle Cajon Pass, though I haven't tried it out yet. Anyways, most of our trains are about half a mile long, sometimes even longer depending on the time of year. And I enjoy it. It gives me a chance to demonstrate what I was built for.
There's no doubt about it that I'm the star of the show around here on freight trains. I've got speed and horsepower written all over me. Can you think of any other articulated capable of hauling 143 cars at 70 miles per hour?
Well, maybe the Norfolk.
Besides that.
And the Baltimore.
Besides that.
And the Duluth Mussaby.
And that.
And the Chesapeake.
I'm the star of the show here, and you know it.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Calm down.
I need to calm down. Other locomotives think they're on top. What a load of bull.
Now, most people think of passenger trains as having higher priority than freight trains. While that's normally the case, intermodals are the one true exception, and in Car's case, so are the manifests.
You snooze, you lose, daylight.
Hey, Conrad, stop right. How many times is something like this gonna keep happening to me? I need a cig.
Once through the Western Raceway, the train ducks into a tunnel. During this time, the passengers begin flocking to the dome cars in preparation for the spectacular scenery that lies ahead. Once back in the open, the train reaches the spectacular Stevens National Park, adjacent to the industrial town of Stevens, Utah. All this is complemented by a spectacular steel trestle spanning the Nunes River.
It took over half a decade to bridge the river. Back then, timber was all that held bridges up on these rivers, so designing a safe crossing wasn't easy.
Once through, the train enters the scenic Armstrong Canyon. As well as passenger and freight trains, the railroad also operates a bit of both at once. The Armstrong mixed train operates from Armour to Exacto, using the scenic branch that crosses the Armstrong Trestle. It was here a great battle took place during the Railroad War of 1882.
The Rio Grande Railroad had just come from the south from Armour, and the Santa Fe Railroad just arrived west from Newcastle. A temporary third line was laid so the railroads can interchange, but there was always that deep contempt one side felt towards the other. And thus, a battle broke out to claim the territorial rights to reach Port Ogden.
If you were to ask, let's say, the New Mexico Historical Society or the Colorado Railroad Museum, they'd tell you that the battle ended pretty much in a stalemate with no winners or losers. But if you were to ask me, the Santa Fe Railway reached Port Ogden first, so that technically means they won the battle.
That sounds quite biased if you ask me.
You're biased, and I have my sources. Really good sources.
Yourself?
Not like I'm going to be naming them. I just have my sources, but I'm not going to list them.
Whatever you say. By the way, where did that accent come from?
My Australian accent?
Yeah.
Let's just say that while my externals were built by EMD, my internals were built by Clyde. And there's also...
Well over a century after the battle ended, one can still ride a steam train through the Armstrong Canyon. One of the reasons the line was saved from abandonment was its diverse scenery and history. Today the line is owned by Mohawk Holdings, with Philip Evans appointed to oversee operations on this extensive railroad system.
In 1938, the Santa Fe Railroad chose to abandon the section of track from Port Ogden to Tinkers. The following year, the Rio Grande finally applied for the permission to abandon the stretch from Vandenhoven to Port Ogden altogether. And that was when the holding company Mohawk stepped in to purchase the route just to make sure the region was still served by the railroad.
This has to be one of the most highly regarded regional railroads in the West. It relies almost entirely on steam locomotives, has some unique stretches of circuitous track winding through some gorgeous scenery, but at the same time, we have to balance the preservation of history and operating as a business. And that includes proper inspections on the locomotives, regular track maintenance, supplying coal, and even negotiating trackage rights with the neighboring Harrison and Highland Valley Railroad.
Back on the main line, the Four Corners Limited makes its scheduled stop at Newcastle. On the horizon, the bridge we crossed earlier can be faintly seen in the distance. As the train winds through the scenic North Pass, we see former Denver and Rio Grande Western 484 number 1705 on the head end. This locomotive had a close escape from the scrapper's torch before being recalled from retirement.
It was 1954 when dieselization took hold of the Rio Grande system. Well, or at least the standard gauge Moffett Road. I was laid up at a crummy scrapyard in Ogden. Not Ogden, Arizona, Ogden, Utah. There I was, awaiting my fate, which should have been the end. Then, another locomotive, a Southern Pacific Northern named Steven, who was also on the scrap line, hauled me out of there. He saw a bright future for the both of us and gave this sugarcoat prep talk about lights at the end of a tunnel and whatnot. Anyways, we were on the run for quite a while before finding a hiding spot near the Grand Junction on an abandoned coal spur. There we remained for quite a few years before Stephen was found out by Zachary Thompson, who in turn told Phillips Evans, and that's why I'm here now.
As the sun sets over the Acme River Valley, passengers have a chance to contemplate the scenic train ride to a nostalgic era long past.
To be operating an establishment on this scale, it's like owning a life-size model railroad. Yes, I'm operating it as a business, but there's a passion I have for history and nostalgia. I grew up in Michigan along the Grand Trunk Western's main line, where I'd spend the day after school watching the trains, writing down locomotive numbers, and counting the rail cars. So I can say that I feel sentimental about operating this business. Yeah, I enjoy doing it.
It's quite remarkable that nearly 100 years after narrow rails were laid south of Grand Junction, the Rio Grande and Santa Fe's Four Corners joint line can still be experienced from a historic steam train ride aboard the Port Ogden and Northern Railroad.